So I'm going to review Ryfield's 5010 for the second time. I've already posted this review and taken it down because I made a mistake. I made the mistake by not doing my research because I was in a hurry, and people shouldn't do that. And when they do mess up, they should be adult enough to acknowledge it and then kind of point out what happened. So that's what I'm going to do. After I explain what I got wrong, the bits after this won't even have the errors in them because I'll re-record those parts and it'll be correct. But just let me show you really quickly. So this is DW to Tiger 1 by Tom Jensen and Hilary Doyle. And the main thing that I was not aware of, if you look at this picture here, this is the interior wall of the turret of the Tiger in Saumur in France. And what I just had never realized was a difference in later Tiger turrets, as if you look here, the inner wall of the turret is bare, except for these, they're sort of like boxes, but they're really just kind of sheet metal in the shape with like some dividers to put stuff in. I was not aware of that. There's another angle showing these two boxes here. The walls themselves are bare. There's your close defense weapon and the escape hatch. And again, showing that the turret is, for the most part, bare apart from stuff on the roof and like the vision blocks and stuff. So my initial review, I had thought that Ryfield had messed up and not included the correct instructions, and that was me being wrong and not doing research. This information was pointed out to me by David Burden from tiger1.info, whose website I should have checked for any errors in the kit, because he always has information. And what I primarily try to do is translate what, Tom Jensen and Hilary Doyle and Burden himself have taught me or have out there to be learned, and then I sort of try to translate it to people who are a little more casual about the subject. And in this case, I was just in a hurry, didn't do the research, so my mistake. Let's carry on. So what they have is a mid-Tiger with interior. It does not have Zimmerit molded on, which I wish it did, because I'm a huge fan of dragons molded on Zim. On the box art, it's depicting Autocarius's second Tiger on the Eastern Front, and that was, when Dragon announced it and when Ryfield announced it, the subject of much debate. It seems that a lot of people understand the popularity of Carius, but they don't understand necessarily exactly what went down and when he was in which Tiger and what it looked like when he was. So one of the things that was changed on the Dragon kit and on this one, the Dragon one, by the way, was a white box Cyber Hobby, that Battle of Malinovka one. But with this one was that it was originally marketed as it just said, Autocarius Tiger. And then the rivet counters went a bit crazy and said, hey, when Carius was in his mid-217, it did not have a whitewash. And that's actually true. If you read his book, by the time he comes back to get his second Tiger, which has already been used by someone, it's warm out. So there are famous pictures of 217 in whitewash, but he wasn't commanding it at the time. The majority of the famous Carius stuff that everybody talks about, he was in Tiger 213, like in the Narva bridgehead. The instructions are, as we have been seeing with Ryfield, a full-color book, which is very, very nice. The first page has a rather large sprue map with colors indicating decals and metal parts. Interestingly, different from Dragon-style stuff, they give us our marking options in the front with MiG ammo callouts. So the first one is Tiger 217, Schwerpanzer Abteilung 502 in February of 44. Now that doesn't denote a commander, which is a very safe way to do things. And then we have Tiger 342, early spring of 44 in Belgium. And then over here we have 1944 Northern France, Tiger 312, which looks to be a 101st SS Tiger. So this page tells us where to put Zimmerit. Now that's going to be a huge problem for me. I have tried to do Zim once, and I'm not delicate myself enough to do it. Does not mean that you fine people aren't. Just me myself, I struggle. So, but pretty much everywhere. 217 was covered in Zim. Now, the other Tigers probably all were too. So it's a weird kit because it's obviously kind of a 217 kit, but also just a mid-Tiger kit. So we start with construction. The gun looks to be the same that we have seen from them. Nice sleeve and slide molded barrel. The mantlet, so we're going to have a full interior here, so we're going to have this very complex buildup. There will be some very specific differences between the interior here and the interior on the early that we did though. But there's your binocular gun sight going into like a 3-piece mantlet. And then 2 halves of the breech block, other parts of the gun system, and breech guard. Okay, so then just finishing up putting the MG together and putting the MG into this section. So you have the inner 2 halves of the turret as well as your vision blocks there going together with the breech and gun. Then we get into the really complicated stuff. I won't call out individual parts. I have built most of this up before. Again, there'll be slight differences though. But the different parts for the turret baskets, jerry cans, the traverse and elevation mechanisms that seem to be in this area, seats, and more bits for all the gearing and things that make this thing actually function. And then down here you've got like this bit that blocks off part of the turret basket, and all of the mechanical things that go into the lower turret interior. Different from the other one, you now have the single outer piece and then the 2 halves for the inner piece. So you put the turret ring down on here, set the basket down inside the single piece of the turret. So in this part of the instructions, they're showing us where these storage boxes go in photo etch. So here and then over here, they're just frames where they could put all the things that used to be stored on the turret walls in. I wasn't aware of this until this kit, so I have learned something. It's a little tough to see where they go. I would suggest looking up a reference. DW to Tiger 1 has some really good references of what those look like. There are apparently, according to tiger1.info, a few slots in these for like the vision blocks for the cupola that are missing from this. Here actually, setting like this assembly down inside of the turret, it's actually kind of a nice way to do it. And then here we have our, I'm guessing, yeah, the MG34 for the cupola, the periscopes for the cupola, and the like travel lock mechanism, and like the assisting opening thing for the loader's hatch, all the little bits. Most of this is even seen within Dragon kits. And then like the opener for the cupola itself. So roof going onto turret, most people will leave that off, at least temporarily so. Here are turret baskets, spare tracks. You do have the option to have the 3 spares on one side and the 5 on the other. That will only be on severely specific, very early Tigers, but it's nice that they did that. Hull assembly, at least from this stage, looks pretty much similar. You've got the photo etch bracing, the section for where the idler actually connects to. Then you've got your top guide here. It went together all right. This is one of the few parts I actually did have to watch somebody else's review online, or build-up review. I think it was on Missing Links. I was like, how on earth? It had to do with folding, like getting these, putting these in first, and then kind of sliding the under ones in and locking them into place. Wasn't too bad though. The fronts of the lower hull, as well as the rear bits, torsion bars, swing arms, that's all one piece in this. Then we get into lower hull interior stuff. Ammo boxes, these are the actual suspension elements. The seats, the tillers, ammo stowage, the transmission, final drives. All builds up pretty much without problem. Just our kind of hull pieces here that divide the areas, like the fighting compartment and the driver's compartment. This is a little bit fiddly if I recall. This is like the connects the transmission to the engine. Now we've got ammo stowage that goes down into the floor. I know only one of these should have rounds in it. I don't know if they did note that this time. I think this one's supposed to have rounds and this one's not, like the guys over here. And then these are the more ammo stowage on the side. Batteries going in, not a whole lot on that page. The firewall, these I remember having a hard time fitting, oddly. Just these plates that sat on the floor. Probably was something I did wrong, I can't recall actually. Should probably write stuff like that down. We have gas tanks and fans and radiators. going in all right here. So that's what all this is. Radiator fan, that's the fuel tank. This whole page is devoted to just our engine, which by this time would be HL230. So we had HL210 in our early, which the most noticeable difference between the two visually is that you have 2 on top of this and 3 on the other one. So that's a pretty strong visual cue of which engine you're looking at. Let me load the engine down at the end of this step. So here we have the gun lock for the rear of the hull, our exhaust, all the rear plate stuff, and the jack. So armored covers for the exhausts. The jack looks, whoa, I don't remember doing that. This part here, where I have these 2 tiny little guys that go down onto the jack, that would look accurate because I've seen a real one. I don't ever remember attaching those to a jack before. Interesting. And here we have our front plate, so bow MG. Now that I did actually have an issue getting in last time. And just our driver's vision port. Finally moving on to wheels. The outer part of the final drives. Mud flaps, the idler, getting towards final assembly. Now all that's left is our upper plate, so here we do have photo etch clamps, and oh do I have opinions on these. But that'll be a very big video coming up soon. And drilling holes, which I actually suggest people be careful with a few of these. I've just had a few issues with placing a few tools like the hammer up here. But if you use the photo etch ones, you won't have to worry about that. If you use the plastic ones, you will. Tools going down, wire cutters, axe, shovel, jack block. Interesting that they have an S-hook on the deck. I don't recall having an S-hook on the roof of a mid. I don't know if they were using C-hooks by then, but I've only usually ever seen that type of S-hook on an initial Tiger. They had them wrapped up in the tow cables here, but I'll have to check references. I actually have no idea if mids ever had S-hooks. I don't recall. These excellent workable driver and radio hatch can be a little goofy when you're trying to glue this little thing on to the hatch. I've gotten it to work most of the time, sometimes not. Tow cables will be their excellent copper ones, which are very good. So this is bizarre. Look at this. You've got a C hook here and an S hook there. Huh. I don't like it when I find myself completely unaware of whether or not something is accurate or not. I just have never seen an S hook on the roof of a Tiger. And that could mean that I've been just very ignorant of something. But anyway, the rest of this stuff I really like, even the plastic versions of the clamps holding the cables down. Here we've got our track change cable, our front plate going on. All this is incredibly simple, and our photo etch grills. So the last step would be putting the light on the front plate, which is right here. And then our fenders on, and our turret in the tank, obviously, and then our tracks. The first thing we'll discuss is the kind of goodie bag that they have, which has quite a bit of stuff in it. So the first thing that pops out to me is this. Now, this is something that is really important to making carries as Tiger. So these are the later hull extensions. They're kind of cut out right here. And to have a proper 217, you would need this. So I'm glad they put this in there. So now that is one step closer to having an accurate 217. So this is clearly cut off bits from a late sprue that they have already tooled, but we haven't seen yet. We also have, again, their Zimmerit tools. I guess in lieu of molded on Zim, at least it's something when I did do it, used rollers. Again, that's just something that I'm not particularly good at, so I won't comment on it too much, but at least the tools are there. While we're here, inside there was our periscope sprue. So in general, these are really hard to judge. Normally what I check is kind of how stiff they are, because dragons are really hard. And that seems to me to make them difficult to cut or sand. These seem clear enough. So our decals, which have changed since the initial announcement, now have 217 in white and black, which means you can do it in Carius' command or in whoever had it before him. And then you have just 2 Valkenkreuz, 342 and 321. So, and as far as I can tell, they seem to be correctly colored. So they look good. Printed by Cartograph, which Ryfield's been doing for a while, so you know they'll be good. Our photo etch, pretty extensive actually when you have an interior kit. So you have your grills, you've got like shovel covers, You have various sizes of tool clamps, so like the longer and shorter ones. Most things on this particular sprue are tool clamps. You'll get this in the non-interior kits. Then this one has our bracing and some other bits for the interior version of the Tiger. I had no problems with this particular etch when I built their last interior kit. Also in there is 2 pieces of copper cabling, which makes for some very good tow cables because it holds shape really well, just like Eureka. So the tracks come in the box of sprues of the track links, and we have 4 sprues like this in a bag as well. The sprues are sets of 4 pins of 2 different types, number 1 and number 2, and all your guide horns, as well as a jig on each sprue. Now, since I've done a lot of Ryfield kits, I've got like 100 of these things. But this would be the exact same as all of the sprues that come with the tracks that we've seen from Ryfield. Model cast in style, very fiddly to build, very nice when done. Each sprue has 12 track links on it. Now when we get in close, you can see that these are late Tiger tracks. So that is a problem because Carius's 217 famously had early tracks. The other 2 marking options in the kit, however, do have late tracks. So you would have to replace the tracks if you were trying to do Carius in 217, or more than likely 217 in whitewash. They are very nicely molded, however. So I thought I'd start with a sprue that I know is new. That way, if anybody's watching this and they've already seen one of these Ryfield interior kits, you could just see what I know is different, and then maybe kind of figure out in your head what the rest of the kit looks like, because a lot of these sprues are reused from the 503 Eastern Front interior kit. So here we have a different turret basket floor. We have the parts for the HL230 and a different turret ring, and just other various bits that I'm sure have differed since the early kit. I don't see any problems or flash or anything on any of these bits. I don't know the engine well enough to call out the parts that could be incorrect in any way, but everything looks good to me. When we come over to this turret floor, texture is nice. Everything seems very well put together. This would be the same as it is in the Berger Tiger kits, but different than it is in the previous interior kit. So here you can see that we have the 2 halves for the interior part, and then this single molding for the exterior. I did build it up on the Berger Tiger kit, and it works pretty well, and it does get rid of this seam that I kept getting on their earlier turrets. This was a good move. It does seem a little smooth. I would have liked some rolled steel texture, but again, you have to put Zimmerit on this kit, so it doesn't particularly matter, but it is awfully smooth. So this guy is K-sprue. This would be firewall, interior of the front plate, suspension elements, transmission, final drives, and pretty much just stuff like that, lower hull interior parts. Still would have liked these to be completely enclosed instead of hollow on that side, but they're okay. They look decent when they're in there. Firewall detail is pretty good. I didn't have any problems with that. There's your tillers. All this stuff is really sharply done. And most of this is exactly the same as it was on the 503 interior kit, so if you want to have a look at that after action report, it does look gorgeous when built, but again, the turret stuff does concern me. This is H-sprue, so we've got lower hull stowage, parts for like the radiators, fuel tanks, fans, also parts for the HL210 that we won't be using, and just other interior parts. Again, all looks really nice. The same sprue that was used in the other kit. Yeah, I don't have any problems with any of this. There's your batteries. These are kind of a pain to fit. Either I did them wrong or I had to carve them out a little bit to make them fit. So this sprue here is the 503 turret bin sprue. This has been on every kit since the 503 kit came out, which is fun because these turret bins used to be super rare and now they're everywhere. What I do love about this particular sprue is all these antennas. You got all the different sizes and more than you can pretty much use on any build. So I've got, they get used, you know, on anything I'm doing, because you got that standard 2-meter antenna. You can slap that on anything. Otherwise here you've got the kind of toolboxes for the 503 thing, some tools without clamps, tools with clamps, the clamps for the jack, parts of the MG, jerry cans. Yeah, all this looks very nice. There's a crowbar without a clamp, and a shovel. Now this is one thing, I'll take a little sidebar and talk about this shovel, which is actually short. If you look at it on Dragon Tigers, it's often too long. In the very end of Tiger development, they put a longer shovel on, like the late Tigers. But the majority of the time they had this little guy, which if you look at him, he's not much bigger than those the other tools, like the hammer or the axe. You know, he's almost relatively the same size. I don't know if that comes out to people when they're putting this stuff together. If you look at a Dragon Tiger, though, it's actually a much larger shovel. So I got to give it to Ryfield. They do have that shovel correct, and Tamiya is close, though. But Dragon they always seem to be a little bit too long. The jerry cans look good. The one half of them even has the correct stamping on it. And then those antennas are very nice. Only 2 attachment points, or 3, depending on the size. And those antennas are nice. 3 attachment points per antenna, but they're at least in a place that's not problematic to clean up. So again, what a great sprue. If I could buy just a sprue of antennas, I would. I know Dragon put out a set a long time ago, but it's a little overpriced. We then have 2 of this sprue, which is M, the ammunition sprue, some of which is in 4s and some of which is singular, and then some MG34 ammo bags. I didn't have any particular problems with any of this, other than trying to figure out which was anti-tank and which was high explosive. And if memory serves, the anti-tank rounds are actually the smaller of the rounds. They did, when you put them in, though, only have like 1 attachment point. These large kind of, I don't know what you would describe them as, the things they sit on. But they were either pushed to the one side that way or that way. And they were a little fiddly to get sit correct, but as far as the fidelity of the molding itself, they look really nice. We also have 2 of this sprue, which is D sprue. So our exhaust, the armory covers, the idler of the larger type, drive sprockets, final drives, swing arm and torsion bar pieces, all kinds of little important bits, and the well is like the little washer bits for the workable wheels. This sprue has been identical since the initial kits, and I really don't have any complaints about it. Everything on it's pretty nice. These guys are about up to par with Dragon stuff. I do love that idler arm. That's just really, really accurate. You know, yeah, there's not much I can fault here, other than famously the thickness of their smoke launchers, but for a mid that's not going to be an issue. So then we have this F sprue. So here we have our kind of front plate, different later drive sprocket halves, our standard shrouds, our intakes, the standard early hull extensions, later fibals, a reinforced binocular mantlet, side plates. Very important Tiger stuff here. Now, one point that I'm very, very curious about is these. We'll see if they've changed that at all since their previous kits, but I would doubt it because it looks like the same sprue to me. First thing we'll check out is this. So, all right, there's still one piece and that's whatever, but the big problem has been, do these match up with the holes on the back? I'm having a hard time discerning just by looking here, but what I can tell you is, from here, if you look at the 4 kind of bolts that hold them on, and then you kind of turn it over, the indents for where the kind of lug should be, which would be on this plate, do seem right. Maybe they've changed that, but if you look at where the separation of the originals were, like, remember, they were too long previously. So if you see how this guy is long, you got this little notch here, which is actually on the beginning of the second one. So then it looks like perhaps they fixed all of this, but still left these little dividers. Now these aren't the biggest deal. The way Dragon does it, they're dead in the middle of here, and when you saw them, you can kind of get it right. They're actually quite thin on a real Tiger fender. They're very, very thin metal. So as far as I can tell, maybe they fixed that. Rest of the parts, these guys tend to break on me, so I'll replace them with metal. I still love the bottom of their fenders. I think those look really nice. A couple ejector pin marks there, but the details pretty legit. The layer sprockets look alright. You have some extra late 5-volts for your spare spin as well. Very nice. These look alright. And I have had a really difficult time making these on Ryfield kits. I've had to either scrap them or use Dragon ones on every build of theirs I've done. I don't know what it is. I think it's just me. Alright, so here's a sprue, the original gun sprue from the initial Tiger, which was corrected by their second kit. If anyone recalls, this used to be a little too long, and they fixed that. And this is where their original turret, the 3 parts would have been, the 2 initials and then the 1 early half. Otherwise, we got 3 types of mantlet, turret roof of an early. You can tell by that ventilator there. Little bits for the gun, as well as the muzzle brake. Turret bin bits, 5-0 system parts. So let's have a word about mantlets. That's your basically default early one, but that there is your Tiger P mantlet, which is what 217 has. Unfortunately, no Zim, and I think that putting Zim on the rest of the kit would be easier than getting it onto the mantlet and maintaining the binocular sight holes and stuff. Now again, that's coming from a guy who's really bad at doing his own Zim. But you do have the right mantlet in the kit, so you have the right hull extensions, you have the right mantlet. What you don't have is the right track, so that's the only thing that you would need to replace. There's your turret ventilator. That's the cover. Their muzzle brake is pretty good too. There's your early roof. Has all the interior stuff on it still. There's the teeth of the turret ring. Barrel. Turret bin. Let's get him up there. Very nice looking. Here we have our upper deck, our rear wall, our glacis plate, some tools, some early or initial 5-0s, I guess you could call them. Lots of various important bits, your hatches, your jack blocks, a lot of your tools with clamps, a lot of your other bits, the hoses for the 5-0s themselves. I've never had any problems with this. This is a nice piece right here. Good base. These parts here, they've all been alright. These 5-0s, if you're going to use them, did have photo etch in the original kit though. Now this is weird. Okay. So, you have your early deep weighting attachments there, and then you also have the notch for the later front plate. Now, I made a mistake on the Berger Tiger that I was building, and I removed these because I thought mids wouldn't have them. Didn't do my research, don't be me. So I'm not sure if Carius's 217, I don't have a picture on me, has these or not. But if they do, you can remove them. What you can't do is add them back on, which I learned the hard way. Apart from that, this plate looks alright though. Here we have a rear plate. I'm noticing that we don't have that bar that Ryfield has been using for their 5-0, so this actually looks correct. It's good. Their tools I'm pretty okay with. This was the only one I ever complained about, just because the part that it goes in was a little too smooth. Didn't really separate, but not too bad. So all these parts are the same, with the exception of what looks like an update on this plate. And then this wouldn't be the same on the original tooling, so there has been changes to the tooling to make it adequate for what we're doing. So this is our mid sprue. Here we've got the mid to late turret roof, a later rear piece here, and you can see we've got it perfectly smooth there, so nothing to remove. Very cool. Reinforced binocular mantlet, barrel cleaning rods, hull sides, the later configuration of the track change cable, later cupola, the barrel lock for the rear, and the MG mount for the cupola rig. So our later roof does have attachment points for interior bits. Very good. I didn't have any particular problems with the roof when I did the Berger Tiger. That looks to be a command antenna right there, like the little Scherna antenna storage tube. Here we have our later hull sides. I don't see any problem with those other than they're pretty smooth, but again, this kit needs Zimmerit, so that's alright. There's your rear wall. Nice to see those things removed. Two different cupolas. I'm guessing the difference being this slit here for rain runoff, right there. Got some other loaders hatches for the later type. There's the bits for the travel lock, and then there's your cable. Then we have C-sprue, which is our early type wheels. We've seen this in every kit apart from, no, I think it's been in every one, because they never had a proper late. They had one that had a choice of wheels, but never one without this sprue. Detail is really nice on everything. For what it's worth, written really small in there is actually Continental, not Continental. So I don't know if Ryfield's just not as concerned, but it's nice to have the right word on the tires. The last thing to look at is our hull, which has been the same in all of the kits so far. Things that are molded on are these large bump stops. Your double scalloping up here looks very nice. Everyone does that apart from Tamiya, but it's nice to see. You've got that split hull plate there, which is correct. This is a very good base. I like the way they do it. You do get that seam here, but it's usually covered up so well you wouldn't even need to do any kind of filling there. It's a really nice piece. Overall, apart from, again, very smooth. You can see there how shiny that is. So that's the kit. I think that the actual simplified turret information will make this an easier build than the previous one, as well as the one-piece turret. To make 217, you will need to get separate tracks because they did have early tracks on 217, regardless of whether or not it was a command of carriers or not. There's a list of other inaccuracies on tiger1.info. I will put a link in the description. I suggest you check it out. The only reason I don't mention each one is because these are severely esoteric things for the average person. Now, but for a Tiger obsessed type person, they are very important. So I do suggest, you know, if you really care about the accuracy, check these things out. Overall, though, it is really nice now that I have realized my original error in not understanding the turret interior. It looks pretty good.